over there to display in your windows, take to shops, community centres, etc. People are generally very supportive of the new hospital, but they don't know what's really happening. Thank you so much for supporting the new hospital at Whipps Cross. We need to ensure that our new hospital is big enough to meet all the health needs of our growing population. We don't want a hospital which in the future will be turning ambulances and patients away for lack of beds. With all the land that's now available, that would be a scandal and a huge health risk to us, local residents. We need a hospital that keeps the valuable services that Whipps Cross has into the future. Like the much-loved Margaret Centre, a centre of excellence for palliative and end-of-life care. How important for all of us that end-of-life care and dying is managed well. The proposal for the new hospital contains no plans for this service as a specialist unit, as a building on Whipps Cross site. We need to keep the Connaught Day Hospital for frail old people. It helps them to continue living in their own homes. We need to keep the dialysis unit for our sickest residents. Most of all, we need more hospital beds.
Yes.
So why is this planning meeting important? Under the current plans, only 30% of the current site will be retained for the NHS. 70% of the land will be sold for a housing development. 1,900 new homes, none of which will be reserved for NHS key workers.
Same.
Once the land has been sold, it's gone forever. If 70% of the land goes for housing, and then in the future it becomes clear that the hospital is too small or more health services are needed, there will be nowhere to build them. We will have lost our opportunity. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and that's why we're asking the planning committee to reject this application, to require a design with capacity for more beds and all the existing services over a larger proportion of land. So that's what we want. So what do we want? More land and more beds. Yes. Absolutely. More land and more beds.
Parking spaces as well.
Let's be clear about the reason that the new hospital will not be big enough for all our local health needs. There's not enough money coming from the central government. This is not about the council, this is about the funding from central government. But the council have the power, though, to grant or reject the planning permission. The money Boris Johnson promised before the last general election has not been granted. The original design for Whipps Cross was costed at about 800 million. The government is now planning to spend about 450 million. That's why the new hospital won't be big enough. So what can we do? In the short term, we need to save more land for a bigger hospital and future NHS development. We urge Waltham Forest Council to reject this application and join us to campaign to put more pressure on Ian Duncan Smith and the Treasury to give us the funding our hospital needs.
Yes. Yes.
We need a really big community-wide campaign. Please join us, sign up to our campaign and help us with the next stage. Thank you.
Yes.
We want more land, more beds,
And
when
more
do we
beds.
want them?
No.
What do we want?
More land.
And more beds,
And more beds.
and and the Connaught Day Hospital, and the Margaret
And the
Margaret Centre. Yes. Now, can I introduce Francis, who's going to talk?
Thanks very much, Uva. Right, I'm here as a local resident. I live a few streets away from the hospital site on the James Lane side. I'm also a founder member of Forest Residents Association, and for tonight I'm here as a member of the Women's Institute, the Wanstead branch, the local branch. Now, some of you may not know this, but one of the core principles of the Women's Institute is to promote public health, and that is why we are so keen that we should have a hospital, a new hospital that is fit for the 21st century, that is going to be big enough, that will suit us for years, for decades to come. Good, I'm glad you agree with that too. Now, we looked at this, and the one thing that we really found that was really concerning was about the statutory provision of services in a new hospital, including the gold standard specialist palliative care unit, NHS unit, hospital unit, the Margaret Centre. Yeah. Now, we've waited ages for this hospital, which must meet the community's needs. That's very true. But I fear that at the moment, the hospital's estate, which needs to follow clinical needs, will do nothing of the sort. Indeed, this government hasn't yet settled on the standard model for the proposed acute hospitals under the new hospitals programme. There's no clarity on funding, goodness knows where it's going to come from, yet planning permission is already being sought. We need more and better services. But with these plans, the Margaret Centre, the Connaught Day Hospital, Woodlands, which is the haematology and chemo unit, and the Tomswood will all be bulldozed. Anybody know what the Tomswood does? It's the cardio rehab centre, and it's the staff health and wellbeing centre, and it was only set up in 2018 when it was relocated from Claybury back in 1999, but it was only sort of refurbished in 2018. But it too will be bulldozed. And the reason I know about the cardio rehab is because 3 months ago my husband had a heart attack. I had to bring him to A&E at Whips, and he got blue lighted to Barts after a couple of hours. I mean, I can't fault them, but I mean, they are so stressed out, the staff there. We really do need to support them. And thank you. If there's any members of Whips Cross staff here, thank you so much, all of you. Right, now I could go on about the Margaret Centre for the next half hour. All we've been told at the moment is that these units are going to be bulldozed, and that palliative care for those with a terminal diagnosis needing end-of-life care will be treated in a few single rooms dotted about the new hospital with doctors on safari or in the community. Yet the workshops on how to deliver specialist palliative care across East London, including that currently provided at the Margaret Centre, won't report back until April 2022. So I say, reserve the land, reserve the space, stay flexible.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name's Mary Logan. I'm from Northern Borough Sabre NHS, also a member of Action for Wits, and I'm a retired GP. I'm going to speak on one of the main arguments that Barts Health and indeed the government give for why we need less hospital beds, which is the care that people are going to get instead in the community. They basically imply that, or even actually say, hospitals are actively bad for you. They give you pressure sores, they make your muscles weak. People are much better off being treated at home. Now, things have changed as the years have gone on. There are many treatments which used to be, for instance, having a baby. Years back, a fortnight in hospital after having a baby. Now you're out in a few hours after, and it actually is, it's much better. But we do need hospital beds. It's a nonsense what they are saying. So what about the care that people are getting in the community? In theory, people will be either sent home from hospital much earlier in their illness, in their recovery, to continue their recovery at home, or they won't be admitted in the first place. And in either case, they will be looked after by community services. But everybody knows there's a huge shortage of GPs. The GPs, although they're much vilified in the right-wing press, are actually phenomenally busy, with a huge amount of work. And the thought that they're going to be able to put significant input into looking after a whole load of extra people is just cobblers, to use a medical term. So that's one thing. The second thing is a shortage of district nurses, and indeed all version of community nursing and therapy staff. And not getting the right treatment could mean somebody who could have made a full recovery and gone back to their normal functioning life could end up disabled. Now I want to tell, this isn't all what might happen in the future. I want to tell you what we in Northern Forest Sabre NHS have discovered in the last few months, and it's deeply worrying. I was leafleting for the new whips. I'm not going to say where, because I don't want in any way to identify the care worker, but in Waltham Forest. And people were saying that how can they possibly justify fewer beds? So I said, well, if they were here, if Barts Trust were here now, they would say it's because, you know, the wonderful care in the community, etc. And a woman who was listening just erupted with frustration and said she was a care worker in Waltham Forest. Among her clients were 9 people who were confined to bed. And from time to time, she would need to call in a district nurse to perform some kind of procedure. It might have been changing a catheter, various things. And she said the service had always been excellent, but it had changed in the last few months. And what's happening now, she puts the call in the normal way, and somebody gets sent, apparently in the normal way, and this person comes in, checks the person for bed sores, and then goes to leave. And she says, no, wait a minute, I didn't ask you to check for bed sores. None of mine have bed sores. I know how to treat them properly. You're supposed to be changing a catheter. And the person has no clue how to do a very simple, basic district nurse procedure. The thing that is particularly cynical about this is they are being trained to come in and check for bed sores. What's the significance of that? The significance is if you're looking at, if you're wanting to look at the quality of district nursing, or of nursing indeed of anybody who is bedbound, you look for the rates of bed sores. So they're sending somebody without the training, coming along apparently as a district nurse, and they aren't trained. And this bodes extremely worryingly for the future. There's a lot of it about. The Royal College of Nurses have come out about it. There's another group, I can't think who it is. The numbers of people who are being called nurses and supposedly there to give nursing treatment who aren't trained. It's dreadful. And it's only going to get worse the more the beds are reduced. Because even with good care, by the way, even with good care at home of elderly people, with good nursing care, etc., research shows it does not stop the need for hospital admission. It delays it, and can delay it for quite a long time, but it doesn't stop it. So either way it doesn't work, and it bodes extremely badly for the future. I'm going to stop there. Okay, thank you.
Now, on good energy, I think I want to talk a little bit about sustainability. So it's a different kind of good energy. But I think that it is absolutely vital. What we're all here because we want to have control over our future and our present, and control over the factors that influence our health and our health service. And that is why we are here saying that the new hospital that is to be built for Whipps Cross is an amazing opportunity, and an opportunity we cannot squander, to make sure that it is designed and built according to what we know is needed, both in terms of its capacity and space and the quality of its design. Because we have our understanding of how our environment influences our health is growing all the time, and there's a lot of knowledge out there. And so we also, our understanding of the critical state of our climate now is out there, and we know it, and the world is saying it, and the young people on the streets and the old people on the streets fighting for that. Any decisions that we make now is going to influence the future of our world, especially in terms of such things as buildings. Buildings emit like about 50% of our greenhouse gases at present. So I work in Whipps Cross and Barts Health, and we as staff, a whole group of us have determined that the new Whipps Cross must actually contribute to reducing carbon emissions and not make our planet a more dangerous place and our local area a less healthy place. And people in the community are fighting for the same. So that's had an impact. We had an effect on the company that got appointed, the design team that got appointed for the new Whipps, and they have the capacity and knowledge in terms of environmental sustainability, which is really important. And there's a lot of good design elements that have been built into this. However, there's also a lot of things which are lacking, and that is primarily down to the lack of space that is being allocated to the hospital and allowed to the hospital. So we all know that like access to windows and daylight is vital for the well-being not only of patients but staff as well. The Victorian era that built the old Whipps Cross knew it. And they built, big windows. They knew about air circulation. They designed the areas according to their knowledge at that time to be the best possible. And we cannot either lose valued services like the Margaret Centre, or live in cramped space that actually isn't designed for the needs of us to work in, including things like training facilities, which are currently being incredibly cramped, and staff are not being listened to in terms of what's needed. So the fact that we're holding this protest, the fact that we're going to speak at this planning committee is absolutely vital. We need a new hospital. It needs to be designed with the current knowledge we have, with the voice of the staff who work in it, with the voice of the community who uses it, being heard and at the centre.
Experience up there, I'm horrified with the prospect of potentially having our hospital closed by stealth, because that's what's being described here tonight. If you surround that hospital with housing, then even in the minds of the local community, it can be perceived as no longer a hospital. I used to work in the local library, and we used to have a discussion in our union that if we basically got rid of our services and did other services like disabled badges and council tax and benefits, then we lost the service through stealth, quietly. And I think this is partly what is going on here tonight. And I'm really reassured that this campaign is calling for the rejection of these plans. I think that is the starting point, that we reject these plans because they do not serve the community, which has grown, I think, by 100,000 in the last 10 years. And we do need to perhaps look at, because I mean, for people who don't know, I've been campaigning against the monster block in the market for about 6 years. And the previous speaker who said there's not a lot of you, well, I think that actually this is a good turnout, because it's really hard to sustain a campaign over a long period of time and keep yourself in the public eye. But if it doesn't go our way tonight, we are faced with the challenge of what do we do? And people know that, I've stood for council, I've stood for Parliament, I've stood for the GLA, and I really do believe that all of us have got to step up into the public arena and challenge electorally councillors who are no longer doing our bidding. And my last point is this. A long time ago, 10 years ago, we were told that we had no option but austerity. And the people inside here said, we don't believe in austerity, we voted for it with a heavy heart. And I think a lot of them went in there thinking they could generally manage austerity. But over the years, what's happened is they've run out of so much money, they've started to see that their assets, their land, their skyline, as the way that they generate money. And I think they've done this at Whip's Cross. Instead of demanding a general hospital which is publicly funded, personally I don't think the nurses' home should ever have been demolished, because I think nurses should have cheap rents and somewhere to live with a bursary. And that's part of the crisis in staffing. But I think the essence of this is that we have to stand up, all united, all the different campaigns, the trade unions. I mean, as I said, I'm involved in so much, I haven't been as active in your campaign. But I did occupy a ward with my baby son when he was 6 months old, when they threatened to close it. And I stood for Parliament against PFI. And I think we can all do that in our respective campaigns and throw ourselves at it.
Right, well done. Now, I just want to quickly say, we have posters for your windows, neighbours' windows. We got leaflets, loads of leaflets. If you can help us leaflet, if you would like some, that's brilliant. I can give you as many as you can take. Thank you.
I think those who want to go into the meeting need to be moving in now. It's nearly 7 o'clock, but thank you. Please, thank you so much for supporting us this evening. Please sign up to our campaign. Look at the website, which is hosted on Forest Radio, and join us in our actions. We won't be stopping here. We will carry on, because we know we need more funding if our hospital is to be viable. We're in talks with the GLA. We're carrying on. Thank you so much. Keep supporting us.